Today I'm going to work with 3 of the new horses on building their confidence with the plastic bag, the tarp, and possibly the flag, depending on how they're doing. So I've already round pinned them today, and I've round pinned them a couple of times each, just kind of letting them settle in here and not asking too much of them, but just kind of getting them moving around and getting them used to their new surroundings. And today we're going to start work, okay? So I'll introduce you to each one of them before I start working with them, since they're new to our program. And I'm going to do this with each of them even though they're at different phases in their training, because for me personally, this is where I like to start, and it helps me assess the horses better than just throwing a saddle on them and just seeing what happens. So the purpose of this, just like I explained when I did the evaluation with Mary and Pippin, it's the same thing. The purpose is to make sure that the horse knows that they need to pay attention to me, and they need to look at me when something's bothering them. Instead of being explosive or trying to run away, they need to turn to me and I'll help them and fix it. So I need to know that the horses are going to be paying attention to me while I'm working with them, okay? And especially like with the tarp is really good preparation for the saddle, okay? Having the tarp, being able to fling it up over them and draping down and touching them on both sides is really good preparation, because I don't want to teach a horse I don't want to just throw the saddle on and have them explode because they don't know what it is. And because you can teach a horse to be explosive and then have to go back and fix it, or you can teach a horse to just be calm and be paying attention and be confident in the first place, okay? And it's much easier to just do it right the first time than to try to rush through things, throw the saddle on, have them explode or be scared or be upset, and then have to go back through and fix it and build their confidence up again. So you'll end up with a much better horse if you just teach them to be confident and calm in the first place, instead of going back through and trying to build their confidence after they've already been afraid of something. So like I said, I already round pinned her a little bit. The other thing that I want to check in with just before I start with the plastic bag is I want to make sure that they're giving to the halter, okay? Because as I go to do this, if the horse does get nervous, I don't want him pulling away from me. I want him giving to the halter and staying with me. So I'm just going to ask her to tip her head this way. And ideally, I'd like her to stay stopped and just turn her nose around. So I'm going to stay with her, and she's kind of pulling on me, but I'm just going to stay with her. There she goes, good girl. And as soon as she gives, I release to her. I'll try the other side. And this is Emma, by the way. She's a 6-year-old Arabian. Good girl. Much better on that side. And she was lightly started as a 2-year-old and really hasn't had anything done with her since then. So we're pretty much doing a restart. We're going to assume that she knows nothing. We trailered her here and she did fine, and she catches and she leads, and she's really, really friendly. She round pins decently well enough. She tends to be very distracted about the other horses around, and she's very friendly, and so she likes to call the other horses. But otherwise, she's really friendly and really kind of into what you're doing and what's going on. So I don't think that she's going to be too difficult to work with, because she pays good attention to, she's really involved. So we're going to go ahead and start with the plastic bag, and we'll just see what we get. So I'm going to just let her look at it if she wants to. Good girl. And that's what we'd like to see, is that we want them to be curious and be wanting to look at it. And then what I'm going to do is just go up to her side with the bag in my hand. I'm not going to do it at the end of the stick yet. I'm going to hold it in my hand. And I'm just going to go up to her side and just pet her with it a little bit. Good girl. Good. I'll do the same on the other side. Good girl. Good. Well done. Okay, then I'll go ahead at the end of the stick and see if I can just touch her and start with her withers. Good girl. She kind of was a little unsure there at first, but she was okay with it. Good girl. And I'm just going to kind of rub her around, and since she's not really concerned about it, I'm just going to keep rubbing her. If she was spooky about it, then I'd go a little bit slower, but she doesn't seem to really care. I'm going to go down her front leg. Good girl. You're fine. So I just bump the halter. If she tries to walk off, I just bump the halter. Good. Good, there you go. Good girl. And then when she stops, because she was a little touchy about it going down her front leg, so once she stands still for it to go down her front leg, then I release and take it away. So do the same thing on the other side. Start at her withers. Good girl. Good. Good girl. Good job. What a good girl. So now I'm going to wrestle it a little bit because I don't necessarily just want them to be used to it touching them, but we also want them to be used to it kind of the noise and blowing around, because you never know on trail, you might come across it stuck in a bush or blowing by in the wind or whatever. So you want them to kind of be used to a little bit of chaos too. And so I'm just going to hold her, and I want to make sure that she doesn't feel like I'm chasing her with the bag. So I keep moving the bag, good, until she stops, and then once she stops, I release. Good girl. Good, good girl. The same thing again. Good, well done. Good girl. Come a little closer to her. Good girl. What a good job. Good girl. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Aw, what a good girl. Good job. I'm coming a little closer to her. Good job. Good girl. Good girl. So overall, she was pretty comfortable with the bag. So we'll move on to the tarp. And it's funny, some horses are really comfortable with the bag and afraid of the tarp, and some horses are the opposite, where they're comfortable with the tarp and afraid of the bag. Some horses are comfortable with both, and some horses are afraid of both. So just because of how a horse reacts with one thing, you're not always able to predict how they're going to react to the other thing. Good girl. So just let her sniff it and look at it. Good girl. Good. So I'm going to do the same thing I did with the bag, and it's a pattern, okay? Keep that in mind. Because then when you go to introduce something new, they find comfort in the fact that it's the same pattern, and they know that they can rely on you to always use the same pattern. So it gives them, they find comfort in that. Good girl. Okay, now I'm going to unfold it just one and see if she'll kind of put a foot on it. Good girl. Good girl. Well done. Good girl. And anytime they want to explore it, you should always let them explore. Good girl. That's how they get really confident about being comfortable with things by themselves and not having you always have to baby them. Good girl. So now I'm going to unfold it one more and see if I can just kind of lay it over top of her back. Good girl. And I'm going to hold on to it just because it's kind of windy here today. Good girl. I'll do the same thing on the other side, and then I'll see if she'll walk over it. Ooh. So for me, when I'm working with a horse, if I can't put this tarp up on their back like this, then I'm not even going to try to put a saddle or a saddle pad on them. This always comes first for me. Good girl. What an excellent job. Good girl. Good girl. Okay, then I'm going to unfold it some more. Ooh. Good girl. Good girl. Well done. What a good girl. And I can go a little faster with her because she's being really comfortable with it. Obviously, if you have a horse that's really scared at a certain point, you're going to want to stay at that spot for a while. However much you've unfolded the tarp, you want to stay there for a little while until she gets used to it at that size. But she's being really comfortable, so I'm not going to be too worried about her. And a little bit wanting to move in front of me there, so I'm just going to move her off. Just because there's something new going on doesn't mean that she can forget her manners. And I just wanted to turn away from me. Good. Because over here I was asking her to turn and she was just going to kind of blow past me. So I'm going to get after her here again. Even when something else is going on, that doesn't mean she can forget her manners. Oh, good girl. Now I'm going to ask her, because again, we're working on that manners too. Good girl. I'm going to ask her to turn away from me. Good. Much better. Good. Now we'll go back to the tarp. So anytime if your horse starts to forget their foundation while you're working on something more complicated or more distracting or whatever, go back to that foundation, help your horse remember what it is that they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to relate to you, and then go on to the more complicated or distracting or advanced thing. Good girl. Good girl. And it's kind of scary because it's moving quite a lot in this wind, but she's doing very well with it. And I just like to see her come step up on it. Good girl. Good girl. Good. Good girl. And that was fine. I just want to get her front 2 feet on it to start with. There, good girl. Good job. Ooh. Good job. Good girl. So I'll throw the tarp off to the side and we'll move on to the flag. Since she's doing well. If she was afraid of these 2 things, then I wouldn't move on to the flag. But since she's pretty confident, then I'll just kind of progress her just to the small flag, and then I'll quit her for today. You don't want to try to do everything in one day, because you can push them, even a good-minded, confident horse, if you start doing too much and overload their brain, you can push them to the point of exploding when they might not have otherwise. So I'm not going to really ask them to do more than 3 things at the most. Good girl. I'm just going to do the same thing. Rub it on her withers to start with. Good girl. And the flag's a little bit different. It's got a different feel. It's different colors. It's got a different sound to it when it moves around than the plastic bag does. Good girl. You're doing fine. Good. Well done. So now I'm just going to move it around a little bit, and it makes a little bit different noise. Good girl. Well done. Then I'll do the same thing on the other side. Ooh. Ooh. Good girl. Well done. Good girl. Especially if you go trail riding or go to a show or something, a lot of times people have flags in their yards, or the show will, or the fairgrounds or something will be decorated with flags. And so even horses that are used to plastic bags, if they're not used to flags also, then it can be kind of scary for them. So I've got the little flag that I do, and then the next time I go to work on the stuff with her, not today, because like I said, I'm just going to do 3 things max. But the next time I've got a much bigger American flag, and that's a little bit even different and scarier than the little one, because it's got all the stripes and stuff, which can be a little weird to them. And it's much bigger. So that's all I'm going to do with her today, and then next time I go to work on this kind of stuff, we could probably move on to the big American flag. But I'm really proud of how she's doing, especially for an Arab that hasn't had much handling or much training, because they tend to kind of be usually a little bit spookier. But I'm really happy with how well-minded she is. And I also want to point out that I'm really glad how she paid pretty good attention here. And not that she tends to be really connected to you, but she likes to kind of see what the other horses are doing as well. And so I'm glad she wasn't really calling to the other horses or being too concerned about them. So I think that she's going to come along really nicely, and I'm really happy with her. This is Oakley. She's a 3-year-old Mustang mare. She was lightly started last fall, and she's here with us for the summer. We're going to give her a little bit of a restart and get her a little bit further on in her training and a little more solid. So we're just going to be doing the same thing with her. I'm going to check in with the halter a little bit and make sure that she's soft and paying attention, and so that if she does get nervous or I need to pull her around, I know that I have control and she's going to be listening to the halter. And ideally, I'd like her to stand still because I'm not asking her to move her hind end at all. A lot of horses have been taught to assume that just because you ask their head around, they should be disengaging the hindquarters. And I like there to be a distinction, so I'm not asking her hind to move. So I'm just going to hold until she can soften and stand still. Ooh. Ooh. There, good girl. Same thing on the other side. Good girl, much better. And then we'll start with the plastic bag. And I'm going to go ahead and just start by encouraging her to sniff it or look at it if she wants to. Oh, you're a little unsure of that, huh? And see how she's wanting to back up, so I'm just going to ask her to take a step forward. Good girl. Good. Good girl. Good girl. Again, I'm just going to ask her to take a step forward. Good. Good girl. And she's a little bit unsure of it, but that's fine. The purpose of these exercises, like I've been saying, is just to build their confidence. Good girl. Just going to ask her forward again. Good. Because I don't like the horses to get into the habit of just backing up, backing up, backing up. And oftentimes it's a little bit sneakier than others. Some horses are real obvious where they just want to fly backwards. And then some horses like her are a little sneakier where they'll back up one step at a time. Before you know it, you're nowhere near where you started. Good girl. Good. I'm just going to hold it in my hand. And I'm going to go up to her side and see if she'll let me rub it on her withers a little bit. So I'm going to ask her to walk forward. Good. 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 So it kind of breaks up that pattern of just leaving. Good. Good girl. There you go. Good. Good girl. So I'm going to try again and see if she'll just let me walk up to her side. Ooh. Ooh. Good. And I'm just going to rub her with the back of my hand a little bit first. Good. Now I'll rub her with the bag. Ooh. Ooh. Good. Good girl. Good. And then I take it away. And I'm going to have her take a step forward too. Good. Well done. Now I'll do the same thing on the other side. Good. Well done. Good girl. Good job. And I'm gonna put it, slide my hand down the stick a little bit, but I'm not gonna just totally reach out. I'm gonna be able to stay a little bit close to her. Good girl. Good. Good. And I'm just taking it a little slower with her, and I'm just gonna rub it down her top line. Good. Good job. Good girl. Well done. Same thing on the other side. Well done. Good girl. Just gonna have her take a step forward again. There you go. Good job. Now I'm gonna see if she'll let me touch her from a little bit more of a distance. Ooh. 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 Now just stay with her. But see, I'm kind of keeping the bag low and making sure she's not thinking I'm chasing her with it. But I am going to ask her to come forward. Good. There you go. Good girl. Ooh. 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 Good girl. Good. Good girl. Good. So I just rubbed her back for a second and immediately took it away. Good girl. Well done. Same thing again. Good. Much better. Good girl. Good. Much better, darling. I'll go to the other side and try to do the same thing. Just walk her forward a little. And I'm just holding and kind of rocking back and forth a little bit. Good, because when you offset the pressure of the halter, you're more likely to get a step than if you just pull on them straight from the front. Aw, well done. Good girl. Well done. Good. You're all right. Good girl. Good. So now I'm just going to have her walk around with me a little bit since she's kind of tensing up. So she stood still pretty good, but she's kind of tense about it. So I'm just going to have her walk around. But I'm still holding the plastic bag in my hand. It just has nothing to do with her. It's not going towards her or anything like that. Good girl. Good. Good girl. Ooh. Good job. Now I'm going to see, I'm going to get a little bit close again, but I'm going to see if I can touch her legs with it. But you always start at the withers. Ooh. Ooh. I just bump her halter while she's moving. Ooh. Good. So I'm going to touch her back and immediately take it away. Good girl. Start over again. Touch her withers. Good. I'm going to see if she'll let me just kind of rub it down her leg a little, and she's not too sure about that. You're all right. Good girl. Good. Good. Good job. Good girl. Good job. Very well done. Good job. So I'll walk her forward again and do the other side. Ooh. Starting at her withers. There you go. Good girl. Good. Good girl. Good. Ooh. 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 Good. I'm going to ask her to come forward because I don't like her getting into that mindset of just backing away. Good. Good. There you go. Good girl. Ooh. 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 Good. Good. She's welcome to look at it anytime she wants to. I'm going to ask her to come forward. There you go. Good. Good girl, you're doing fine. Good girl. Well done. And then I take it away and come back. Good, much better. Now I just kind of rub it down her legs a little bit, if she lets me. Good girl, good job. Good girl. Good girl. Ooh. Good. Good job. Well done. Good girl. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing from a little further distance. Good girl. Good. And just kind of upping the pressure just a little bit. Not too much, because I don't want her to get real upset about it, but I just want her to get to where she's learning that it's not gonna hurt her, and there's no reason for her to be bothered about it. Good girl. Because like I talked about when I was working with Emma, you just never really know when one's gonna come flying out of the bushes or something like that. So you want them to be real used to the plastic bags, and not just when you're holding it, but you want them to be used to it doing kind of funny things sometimes. Good girl. Good. Good. You're fine. You're fine. Good girl. Good. She's a little bit funny about it touching her shoulder and going down that leg, though. Her back she's okay with now for the most part. And even her hind leg, it doesn't really bother her, but she doesn't like it up at her shoulder. There. That's a girl. Well done. Good girl. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Thank you. Good girl. Starting at her withers. And now I'm kind of at the end of my stick here. Good girl. Good. Well done. Good girl. Good girl. Good. Well done. Good girl. Good job. So what I'm actually going to do with her, I do want to progress a little bit more than this, but I think that for her, it may be a bit too windy to try to do the tarp, so I think I'm going to go to the flag and see how that works, and then save the tarp for a day that's maybe not quite so windy. Good. Now I'd like to see that hind end move forward too. There, good girl. So I'll let her explore it if she wants to and look at it. Good girl. And ask her to come forward a step. Good. There, good girl. Good. Good. Always encourage them to explore. Good. Well done. Good girl. Okay, I'm just going to hold it in my hand and I'm going to take it up to her withers. Good girl. And she actually, funny enough, seems to be a little more comfortable with this than what she was with the bag. But like I said, it looks different, it sounds different, it feels different. So it just depends on the horse. Good. Good girl. Well done. Okay, now I'm going to hold it at a little bit of a distance to me. Maybe not all the way at the end of the pole, but a little over halfway. What a good girl. So she's not really bothered about this much at all. Good girl. Good. Well done. Good girl. Well done. Good job. Same thing on the other side. What a good girl. And I'm actually going to scoot down to kind of the end of the pole. Good girl. Good job. Very well done. And I'm going to hold it at the end of the pole on this side too, and then I'll go ahead and quit her. Good girl. Good. Good girl. Good girl. Very nicely done. Good girl. And that was a great note to end on because she was pretty comfortable with this. And so the whole point, like I said, is building their confidence, creating a pattern that they find comfort in, and you don't want to push them to the point that they explode. She's a really, really good-minded horse, but if I try to put too much pressure on her all at once, she's going to learn to be explosive, whether that's running or bucking or spooking or whatever that is. It's going to come out differently for different horses. But you want to work with them where they're at, push their comfort zone a little bit, and then let them come back to it, okay? And not just try to totally just throw them out of their comfort zone. Like I said, they're just going to learn to be explosive, and then you'll have to go back through and fix it. So it's much easier to go a little bit slower and push the comfort zone slowly and steadily and help them build their confidence than to teach them to be explosive or teach them to be spooky or teach them to be afraid of certain things. So now I'm going to do the plastic bag a little bit more again with Oakley, and hopefully we'll get to the tarp today as well. So I'm just going to hold the bag in my hand, and right there when she wants to back up away from me, I'm just going to ask her to take a step forward. Good. And I'll encourage her to look at it if she wants to. But I don't like him getting into that locked up habit of just backing up. Good girl. So now I'm going to go to her withers. And I'm just going to rub her with it just like it was a brush or something. Good girl. Well done. And then I'll go to the other side and do the same thing. Good girl. Well done. And then I'm going to hold the stick and see if she'll let me touch her. Good girl. Very good job. Good. Good. Well done. Now I'll make a little noise with it. And that's where she's getting a little bit nervous. So I keep moving it. Good. And then when she stops, the bag stops. So you're breaking up that automatic response of wanting to run away from something scary, because when they move away, it doesn't help anything. It's only when they stop that it stops. So you're totally reprogramming their brain. Good. Good. Good girl. Good. And then I'm going to see if she'll let me touch her with it. Good. See how I'm not going to drop it? As long as you're in control of your horse, don't drop it when they're trying to move away. Good. Good. Good girl. Well done. Good. Very well done. Ooh. Good. Not so bad, huh? Good girl. So I'm going to turn her around and do it on the other side. And I like to switch back and forth because sometimes they're a little bit easier on one side than the other. And so when you switch back and forth, it kind of helps them learn it a little bit better, instead of just focusing on one side. So I hold it there. I'm not even touching her with it. Good. And then when she stops, I stop. Good. Good. Good girl. Good. Good girl. Well done. But I'm going to make a little noise with it. And even though she stopped moving her feet, you can tell she's still really bothered about it. So I'm just going to wait until she settles. There, good girl. And then I bring her forward again. Good girl. Well done. Ooh. Good girl. Ooh. Good. Okay, same thing again. I'm just going to rub her withers with it. Aw, good job. Good girl. And notice how if she can't handle it flopping around out here, what a good job, that I'm not going to take it any closer to her. Yeah, pretty good. So I'll keep it at this distance until she's comfortable here, and then over time I'll bring it a little closer to her. Good. Good job. Good girl. Aw, nicely done. And then I go up and touch her withers with it. Good girl. And the idea here isn't just about desensitizing a horse to a plastic bag, but it's about building their confidence under some pressure. Like right there, she doesn't want to have it on this side of her, and so she wants to walk off when I ask her to stand there. And so I get after her a little bit and kind of put that pressure on her, because she's got to learn to handle that pressure if she's going to go on and have any sort of career with her life and not just sit in a pasture. Ooh, thank you, good girl. Then they have to learn to handle these things under pressure. Good girl. And the plastic bag almost embodies chaos. It changes shape, it makes all kinds of noise, it flaps around. And so they have to learn to be able to deal with that kind of chaos and deal with that kind of pressure if they're going to be a reliable riding horse that actually goes and does anything. Good girl. Good. And she's feeling a little bit claustrophobic because I'm standing here with the plastic bag, and even though she's got several feet, she's not right up against the fence. She's got quite a bit of room before the fence, but it still isn't as much room as she is comfortable with. And so this is more pressure because now she's got the fence over on this side, and that's why she's not wanting to stand here. So I'm just going to get after her a little bit and make her stand here and have to kind of pay attention to me, even though it's part of that pressure thing. She may be okay with the plastic bag out there in the middle, but then when she feels claustrophobic with it, then she's not okay all of a sudden. And you don't know what kind of situation you're going to encounter these kinds of things. So sometimes you may be going out on a trail ride and there may be a plastic bag in a bush that you can avoid and move, go way around. And then other times it may be on a really narrow trail and you're having to walk right past it. So you want them to be used to it just under, not just where they're comfortable, but also under pressure. Good girl. Well done. Right, there you go. Good girl. Okay, now I'm going to make a little noise over here. Good girl. That wasn't too bad. Well done. Now I'm going to see if she'll let me touch her withers. Oh, what a good girl. So she's getting a lot more comfortable with it. Good girl. So now I'm just going to walk her around and reposition her back up. And again, I'm not having her go real close to the fence, but just so it's there, so she's kind of having to get over her claustrophobia a little bit at the same time. Ooh. Good girl. Good. And it's important that you work on it when you've got a horse, and most of them are, but to some degree or another. But when you've got a horse that obviously gets claustrophobic about going through tight spaces, what a good girl. You better get that worked out before you get on them. Because having a rider is like the ultimate in claustrophobic, because that same person is on both sides, and a lot of horses just can't even wrap their brain around that. You've got a leg on each side of me, what the heck? So right there, I'm gonna ask her to back up a little. So it's good to teach them to go through tight chutes and that kind of stuff, even sometimes tight enough, as long as it's not a situation that they're gonna get hurt on. Sometimes it's even good to have them go through something tight enough where they even kind of rub up against it a little bit, so that they get used to feeling stuff on their sides and feeling kind of trapped in, because that's how it's going to feel when you first get that rider on them and using their leg and kicking or whatever they do. Good girl. Well done. So now I'm able to make a little noise getting a little bit closer to her. Good girl. Nicely done. Very nicely done. Good girl. Good. So now we're pushing the comfort zone a little bit. There. Good girl. Nicely done. But she didn't run off. She was uncomfortable with it at that distance from her, but she didn't run off, and that's what I like to see. It's not that a horse can't be afraid or concerned about something. I'm perfectly okay with even my broke horses telling me that they're afraid of something. What I don't want is for that flight instinct to just completely override their brain and kick in and make them do something stupid. What I want is when they're afraid of something to wait for my signal of what I want them to do about it. Good girl. And so that's why I teach the horses, like for example with the bag or the tarp, if you stop when you're afraid of it, I'll fix it. Good girl. Good. Well done. Good. Well done. Good job. And that was pretty close to her, and you could, I don't know if you can see it from the camera, but she kind of was shivering a little bit, but she was standing still for me. And that's the point of this. That's the point of what I'm trying to teach her, is not just to not be afraid of the plastic bag, but that when something bothers her, to just stand still and let me take care of it. So now I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Ooh. Good girl. Good girl. And like I talked about in the previous video that I did this with Mary and Pippin, you have to pick one or the other. A lot of people like to move their horse around with the plastic bag. I'm sorry, you can't have both, really. You're going to have to pick one or the other if you want your horse to move away from the plastic bag, or you want your horse to be stopped and relax with it. Good girl. Well done. Good job. Good. And I'm using, when I go up to her withers, I'm using the end of the stick to pet her on the withers with it. So I'm rewarding her just as much as building her confidence when I do that. Good girl. Excellent job. And you can tell from her face, she's a little bit unsure, but she's standing for me because I'm building her trust now. What a good girl. And see how each time I get a little bit closer to her? Good girl. Excellent job. Very well done. Good girl. So that was great with the plastic bag. We'll go ahead and move on to the tarp now. Good girl. And same thing, I'm just going to rub her all over with it and just pretend like it's a brush or something. And personally, I like this tarp. You can probably tell is a little bit beat up. I like to use these kind because of the frayed edges and stuff. It makes it a little bit, there's just a little bit more going on and flopping around. And so I like to use the ones that are a little beat up, but I do want to warn you, if you've got a horse that's got shoes on, then you want a tarp that is immaculate, because all these little frayed edges and stuff can get caught on the nails of the shoe, and then you're really going to be in trouble. So all the horses here are barefoot, so I like to use these ones that are a little bit beat up. But if you've got a horse with shoes, then you're going to want to probably go buy a brand new one. Good girl. So now I'm just going to put it on her back and kind of wiggle it around a little bit. Good girl. Good. And I'll see if she'll walk forward a few steps with me. Good girl. Well done. Good girl. And now I'll unfold it one more and ask her to walk over it. I'm actually going to back her up a little bit so she can line up to it straight. Good girl. And even if she doesn't want to walk all 4 feet over it, because it is kind of small, I just want her to put her, at least her 2 feet on it. Good girl. Always encourage them to look. Good job. Good girl. Good. I'm not going to let her go around me though. Thank you. Good girl. Got 1 foot. Good. Good girl. She's a little unsure. She's okay with 1 foot, but I don't know if I want to put 2 feet on it. There you go. And she was kind of a little bit close to me, so I'm just going to move her off a bit. I don't want to make her feel like she's in trouble and get after her too much, because she did stay calm. And so I don't want to really get after her. I just want her there. Good girl. See how as soon as she stepped away from me, I stopped? And I was very light with it because I don't want her to feel like she's in trouble. I was happy that she went over it, but she can't brush up against me so close. She's got to keep that space in contact, even when she's a little bit unsure. And it's natural for the horses. It's almost like, think about if you're going through a swamp or something, you're going to want to walk in the same footsteps as the person right in front of you, because if they made it through, then you know that where they stepped is safe. And that's kind of how the horses feel when it comes to this kind of stuff. They want to almost step right in the same spot that you're stepped in, because they're like, well, you're alive, so where your feet are must be safe. So I want my feet to step right there too. So now I've got it a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to rub it on her again. And I'm kind of going to shake it around a little bit. Good girl. Good. Now see if she'll walk around a little bit. Good girl. Well done. Good girl. Ooh. Okay, then we unfold it one more and ask her to walk over it. Well done. What a good girl. Good job. And now I'm going to take it at this size and I'm going to switch over to her right side. And I'm going to touch her with it and kind of throw it up on her a little bit. Good girl. You're doing an excellent job. Good girl. So now it's kind of draping down, touching her legs a little bit. Good girl. Good job. Yeah, very well done. And we've got one more crease to unfold. And it's out as big as it can be. And we'll go ahead and ask her to step over it. And if she will, and I don't think that she's gonna care, we'll see if she can, we'll just stand still on it. Because a lot of horses will go over it, but they're not quite comfortable enough to just want to stand on it. So I'll go ahead, I'll take her once over the widthways, and then I'll take her once over at lengthways, and then I'll ask her to stop in the middle. So right there, I don't want her going around behind me. So I'm going to correct her at her shoulder. Good girl. Good. Well done. Good girl. Nicely done. Then we'll go over it lengthwise. Good job. And now this time we'll go once more and I'll ask her to stop in the middle. Good girl. Good. Well, I'll try it one more time, but I'm still going to ask her to stop. Good. Now, like I said, oftentimes they're okay going over it, but then when you ask them to actually stop on it, they're like, yeah, I don't know. Can you bring your back feet on too? There you go. Good girl. Good job. And so I'm going to give her a carrot while she's standing on it. And you always want to encourage the licking and chewing. Loose jaw equals loose hips. So we always like to keep them as relaxed as possible. Well done. So then I'll pick it up and we'll see if she'll walk around with it over top of her like this. And this is pretty big. It's going to be touching on her legs and all draped over her back and all kinds of stuff. Good girl. What an excellent job. Good girl. Very well done. Yes, nicely done. Okay, now see if she'll walk around a little bit. And notice how when she's asking me for a carrot, I just push her away. Even when I'm rewarding her, you know, I'll still pet her, but I just kind of push her away. It's not something that's worth really getting real mad at him over. Ooh, good girl. Very well done. Because if you start getting really kind of nasty towards them about it, as long as they're asking fairly politely. If you've got a horse that just about runs you over or bites your hand off, that's a different story. But like her, how she's kind of going, oh, you're telling me a good girl, do I get to have a carrot too? And she's being pretty polite about it, even though she's kind of just putting her nose up in my face a little bit. She's not being real pushy. So I'm not going to get mad at her, but I'm just going to push her away and just be like, no, not yet. Good girl. Good job. Ooh. What an excellent job. So it doesn't get too much better than that, and I'm really pleased with her where she's at with this, and so I definitely think that we're going to be ready to move on and keep, you know, get to working on saddling and all that kind of fun stuff. Good.